Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, I tell you, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. You have heard that it was said to your ancestors, you shall not kill, and whoever kills will be liable to judgment. But I say to you, whoever is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you, everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Again, you have heard that it was said to your ancestors, do not take a false oath, but make good to the Lord all that you vow. But I say to you, do not swear at all. Let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no. Anything more is from the evil one. The Gospel of the Lord. I'm sure no one has ever gone, say, to the hardware store or the grocery store and asked to buy power, right? Power is not something that you can buy or grasp or take home with you. Power. Of course, we can talk about power tools, had power drinks, even power naps, but just power. That is what we defined as the ability to act, the ability to influence. Talk about the balance of power between nations. But power to act, to influence. In our first reading, the prophet says, you have the power to choose. Choose to do God's will. The commandments are before us, the prophet says. Choose, and you will live. We take it for granted that, yes, we have this power of choice. We have free will. God has given us this ability to act. And we know that our actions have consequences, for good or for evil. We have the ability to act, the power to choose. And we are always bombarded with all kinds of choices. We have the power to influence and to act. In our gospel passage, Jesus, reminds us that, yes, we can choose that. Yes, people have told us, the prophets of old have told us how to act, to build up God's kingdom. And so it's good for us to, again, recall and remind ourselves that, yes, we have the power to choose. Because our culture, the media, wants to form our choices. Wants us to buy into this material world, that material things will bring us happiness. This is what we are about. But we as God's people know that we are more than that. We are God's people building up His kingdom, bringing His truth, His goodness into the world. And so we have to exercise our power of choice very carefully. That we have a moral code. That Jesus has given us an example. Because worldly things, our selfishness is centered upon ourselves, our selfishness. But Christ gave us an example of otherness, to give of ourselves to make sacrifice. And spouses and parents know about this, giving of themselves to others. That is a choice. It doesn't come always naturally, that we have to choose to love, to forgive, to be generous. And God has given us that power to choose, to live by His commandments, that has formed us who we are, God's people, people of this parish, of this community. But so often we take it for granted that we have this power. Look in the news. Egypt is struggling to have a government. They're making choices. They're using their power to make a difference. Yes, all of us have that kind of power. We can influence, we can act to make a change. People have chosen to act a certain way, and we can see that. And perhaps we reject it, or perhaps we imitate that. But as Jesus said in the gospel, our righteousness, our sense of what is right has to be beyond just this world. That what is right, what is true is found upon God's will. Because the world, it's very fickle in what is true and what is right and what is appropriate. But God has put into our heart the wisdom that St. Paul talks about, that there is a true wisdom, not of the world, but of God. And we are very blessed, very fortunate that we have this wisdom through our baptism, through our confirmation, that we have a standard of righteousness, a foundation of truth that is divine. No, we cannot buy power in the store, but we can have God's power upon us. As we hear, God's power is mighty. He acts, his will is done through us if we choose to respond to his will. So I invite you in your prayer to examine, how are you using the powers that God has given you? How are you choosing to do what is right and what is good? In the very small ways, we can make a difference if we choose to do God's will, to bring his truth, his love into the world. So let's thank God that we have this power, that we have these choices, that our choices be formed upon doing God's will and bringing his love into the world.